Vale, muy bien, pues, Emmanuel, ¿listo?
Sí, absolutamente.
Ok, chicos, veis que hay un círculo aquí alrededor. Por favor, poneros cada uno en una parte del círculo, poneros aquí alrededor. Puedo ir distribuyéndoos por alrededor de toda esta zona. Please, each one of you, stay around here. Perfect, very good. Excellent, excellent. Good job. You guys are really, muy bien, muy bien. Perfecto, fantástico.
Bueno, sabemos ponernos en círculo.
Bueno, sí, se ha hecho un círculo perfecto. Okay, so this is one of the scenarios that we were going to see today, and we're going to go next to the next one. First of all, I would like to be very thankful with all of you. I know that this is probably the first time for some of you that you get actually into the metaverse, and I know it's a big effort, so thanks a lot. Thanks especially to Emmanuel, who is right here next to me. He's the architect of this space. As I told you already, he's the XR financial officer at the XR lab at Stanford University. So it's a super huge honor for us to have him here today with us, joining this experience. The overall goal of this experience today is to test out this space that he created and another one next to here that we're going to go later. But before we go to the next space, I would like to give you guys, each one of you, like 15 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 segundos para introduciros, decir quiénes sois y nada, y qué es lo que hacéis, ¿no? Simplemente hacia la izquierda, uno a uno, empezamos, ¿vale? Empiezo yo si queréis. Pau Guardiola, director de experiencia de usuario multimedia de la UCAM, and I'm really excited today to join this with you guys. Next.
Hi everyone, I'm Andres. Most of you know me. I work in the virtual reality department at the UCAM with the user experience mostly, and I'm really happy to be here.
I'm Sergio Albaladejo. I'm professor at the Faculty of Communication at UCAM, and I teach audiovisual fiction and documentary. So I'm really interested in this experience. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes, hi, I'm Anna. I am an English and a German language teacher, and I'm interested in new technologies, and I'm trying out new things every day. So thank you for inviting me today and to make the most, I hope, to learn a lot of this experience. Next.
Okay. This is Blas. I'm teaching graphic design in the communication faculty since 2005, so it's a long time. And that's a wonderful experience for me. So thanks, Pau, for inviting me. And well, I'm really excited about this experience, and that's my song.
It's my turn. Hi, I'm Rafael Melendreras. I'm the Vice Dean of the Telecommunications Faculty at UCAM, and also I working in some projects related to VR and 3D object digitizing. And thank you very much for inviting me to the conference, and a pleasure.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Juan Francisco Hernández. I'm professor in the Faculty of Communication. I teach classes in the marketing and audiovisual fiction and video games. Tonight's a special night to me. This is my first experience in the metaverse, and I'm so excited to be here with you.
Hola, mi nombre es Joaquín. Me presento en castellano porque necesito que Ana me dé clases de inglés.
Perfecto, cuando quieras.
Posiblemente soy el mayor de todos los que están aquí. Soy empresario de hace muchos años y amigo personal de la familia de Pau, y es un placer estar aquí con vosotros. Me encanta esta tecnología, de verdad. Sois unos cracks.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Arturo, a computer engineering student in the UCAM. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Pau, for the invitation.
Hi, I'm Aldo, also a computer engineering student here at UCAM, and also I'm very glad to be in here this experience. Yeah.
I'm happy to reintroduce myself. Thank you, Paul. I am a financial officer for Stanford XR, currently research assistant for the Deliberative Democracy Lab, which is why I'm doing this in the first place. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's going to be a pleasure to just talk about things, whatever we want to say. Again, thank you, Paul, for planning this entire event. It's a pleasure to be here and get this tested out and work on research. Appreciate it.
Thanks to you. Thanks to you. Thanks a lot also to those two guys that they just joined us. He visto que dos han entrado nuevos. Genial.
Yeah.
Si os podéis presentar.
Hi everyone. My name is Danny. I'm a professor and at the UCAM. I'm nurse and I working with Pau and Andres and Alberto for creating or made a lot of stains or in metaverse, and
Perfect.
we are so glad to be here.
Thank you, Danny.
Hi everybody, I'm Marco. I'm Director of International Development at UCAM. I'm Italian, but I'm living in Spain many years, and this is my second time in the metaverse, so quite strange, but it's not great. Thank you so much for every time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Remember all that we are recording this because we are doing this as a research project also, because the goal is, as Emmanuel said, perfect. I'm glad you are all having fun. Okay, now is the time to, if Emmanuel, do you think it's okay? We can start moving to the next space, because one of the greatest things about the metaverse is, first of all, to have this sense of belonging, to share the same space, but also we can change the actual space. So we will fly to another environment that Emmanuel created, and there we will have this little round table where we will talk and discuss about the metaverse. So it's up to you. You can guide
Do we want
us.
to do the round table or do we want to do the auditorium?
We
We can do the
can make
auditorium.
the.
That one has the chairs.
All right, let's go to the
Esto es lo
auditorium.
más friki que he hecho en mucho tiempo.
Feel free to follow me. Just press visit
everyone come
world.
here. Just
press
click
it,
and visit the
we're all
world
gonna be
and
popping up in there.
over there.
And it should start loading for y'all as you start rolling in. Perfect.
Perfect.
¿Qué es esto? Coca-Cola. El hombre invisible.
Wow.
Hey. Nice.
What is this?
Experiencia, viajar en el metaverso. Falta
Oh, qué bueno.
el agujero de gusano.
Estamos jugando, Albert.
Primera
We
fase.
are playing.
¿Quién está jugando?
Epa.
Al-
Me han invitado a jugar.
Albert.
Para que no pise a nadie. Vale. Qué chulo.
Okay.
Vaya cine.
¿Dónde me puedo...?
Así.
Here we go.
Echan una buena.
Good job, guys.
Así.
Perfect.
Avatar.
Very good.
Me siento.
Cool. We can float above our seats right now if we'd like to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Good job, guys. I think we are more or less in the place. Emmanuel, please, you have to sit in the middle. You are our.
Oh,
Eres nuestra estrella hoy.
It's meant for Alice. It's meant for Alice. But I'll check real quick. Okay, she hasn't sent a message yet, so I'm happy to go in the middle. Sounds good.
Okay. If she joins that, we will let her to be in the middle.
Yeah,
Perfect.
exactly.
Cool. This looks amazing from here. It looks really, really nice. Actually, I will record a little bit also from here. It's super cool from here.
Pulling out the recording software, I see.
Yeah. Maybe we can make the. Muy bien, perfecto. Pues bienvenidos todos. Enhorabuena por el salto, vuestro primer salto de metaverso. Congratulations to the jump within the metaverse. You should be able to hear us perfectly since we are in this main stage, and in Horizon you can set up spaces, audio spaces. So whatever we say in here, it will sound perfectly in the whole area.
Exactly.
Thanks to Emmanuel who developed this also. The goal now in this space is to have a little chat with you, Emmanuel, and I have a bunch of questions, and I'm sure the people here might also have some questions. Seguro que algunos de vosotros también podéis tener algunas preguntas. Yo voy a empezar con algunas de ellas. Cualquiera de vosotros que tenga cualquier pregunta, por favor, levantáis la mano. Así de sencillo como en el mundo real. ¿De acuerdo? Perfect. So, Emmanuel, I'm really glad to have you here. I think it's such an honor to be with you in such an amazing place. And I guess my first question should be, how do you think the metaverse will actually change the way we communicate to each other?
Let's see. So I think that one of the big differences with VR versus, like, let's say a flat screen phone is that instead of just seeing their face or just seeing a flat screen representation of someone, you can feel like you're seeing at a 3D representation of someone. And that's the result of embodiment, of presence, of like the illusion of being in another space. So that means, for one, you can get facial expressions over time. Once we have more facial recognition technology, you can see the eye movement. You can make unique expressions of like this that you can't really do in the real world, and you can make things a lot more interesting and exciting and intimate if you really want to. But it's up to everyone. Yeah. Perfect.
But also this comes, some people are kind of scared about this technology. They for instance, my wife is always telling me that.
Perdón. Alice ya me dijo que ya llegó.
Fantástico.
Ok, ahorita la traigo.
Fantástico.
Perdón por interrumpir.
No, al contrario. Va a ser fantástico. Tengamos también aquí hoy a Alice. Alice, bueno, ahora la presentaré, pero ella es la directora del departamento de...
Okay. Le mandé una invitación ahorita, a ver si llega. Otra vez, perdón por interrumpir.
Nada.
All right.
Mira yo dónde estoy, Juanmi. Aquí estoy en una reunión. En el metaverso.
Escuchamos
Sí.
Qué chulo. Oh, hi, Alice. Hi, Alice.
Hey, Alice.
Hi, Alice.
Hello.
Hi.
Coming.
Fantastic. Alice, please come here, join us. Here we have your seat.
You deserve the middle seat. You can jump by pressing A on the bottom right of your right controller. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Perfect.
There you go. Maybe if I give you my hand.
Press up and then forward. Like this. Yeah,
Perfect.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Good job.
How do I?
All right.
Yeah. It's your first time at Horizon Worlds, so
I'm
we will
trying
not
to
judge.
get there.
Yeah. And then with the right stick, you can move your head right and left. So you can sit down and move your head towards people. Perfect. Good job.
Oh.
Fantastic.
Hi.
Fantastic, Alice. I'm so glad to have you
Yes.
here tonight. Here we have Emmanuel. Please welcome Alice. See you, Alice. She's the Associate Director at the Stanford Deliberative Democracy Lab. That's the amazing laboratory where I was able to join 10 years ago at Stanford University. And it was such an amazing experience. And most of it was thanks to Alice. So I'm really glad that she's joining us today here. Please, Alice, welcome. This here in front of you, we have a bunch of professors, students from our university at UCAM, and also we have some friends, etc. That most of them today is also their first experience in the metaverse. So thank you very much. And we were starting. We just started with Emmanuel, and I was asking him just a very first question that I would like to ask you also. Since this is your first seconds inside the metaverse, first of all, what are your first impressions about this technology?
Well, it's very, very cool. I mean, it's, I think it definitely takes some getting used to, but wow, this auditorium is beautiful. And I think it's just to say that there's so much potential, as you know, how you've been working on this for so long, that there is so much to explore. And as people have more access to this, we can do so many more things in these settings.
Yeah, definitely. So I would like to ask Emmanuel, about because you talked about the social presence. So you talk about the avatar. So we are, and I don't know if you guys notice, my avatar is actually a little bit more expressive than yours because I'm wearing the Meta Quest Pro, and in these glasses they have facial expression. So my eyes can move right and left. I can smile. I can be very upset and so I would like to ask you, Emmanuel, what do you think about this social presence, the role of avatars within the metaverse?
The role of avatars within the metaverse. Interesting. I don't think there's any other way to really humanize the metaverse unless we have avatars within them that represent us, that we can embody and play the role of. And I think it's a very empowering thing. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. And what about you, Alice? What do you think about the actual way we express ourselves with the avatars?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think so many people have been thinking about how people can interact in these spaces. And the question, and there's so much psychology behind this too.
Yep.
You know, faces with no legs, faces with bodies and how they move and how they're supposed to move. And there's also the questions also about as technology advances, how similar do you actually want the avatars to look? Oh, my connection is.
We can hear
still
you.
Hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah.
Great. Sorry, I'm on my mobile hotspot because the Wi-Fi is out at my house, and
Still
doing
working
it.
pretty
freezing
well.
weather.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, I think there's so much to learn about what would entice people to be in this spaces more, because I think people come to the virtual spaces for various reasons, whether it be work related or whether it be for fun. And I think people would have different experiences. It's like how we, wear different clothes, or we have different personalities potentially in different settings. And I think it's really up to these platforms and places that really help us figure out what exactly people's experiences want to be, and how do they address it with the avatars or other things that we could wear or dress like or look like or feel like in these spaces.
Perfect. I would like to ask people here around if you guys are hearing us correctly. It's okay?
Yeah.
You can say
Yes.
okay? Perfect. Fantastic. You can jump around. Perfect. Because I have to tell you that, guys, that what we are experiencing right now, I've been in the metaverse following many blogs and people, and I've never seen this yet. This is the first time I've seen an actual real metaverse conference, like a real one. So this is, I think it's historical. And I would like to ask another question, because I think we all agree that this is pretty amazing, but it also has some risks. For instance, my wife, she's always telling me, what, Pau, at the end we will all end up in the sofa of our house is super fat with those glasses in the head. What do you think, Emmanuel? Do you think what are the risks of the metaverse?
Ooh, this is a big one for me. I'm a huge advocate for being very considerate of the worst case scenarios that come with this technology. But same thing with like the phone and like the internet at large. We weren't really considering what could go wrong. We didn't have the right perspective to know what could go wrong. But with this technology, given how immersive it is, given how much more presence there is, given how much more escapism is possible through something like this, we need to be very conscious about how to create the methods, the systems, the incentives to nudge people to not run away to these worlds, but become empowered by them, to be learning from them, to be further connected with the real world, because this space gives them the potential to do so in a very nice human-centric way that connects people, not divides them. And that's where I think deliberative democracy, for one, can help a lot. Having people discuss about these things in a very humanistic way, deliberating on what's the right policy, how do we help ourselves in these spaces, more so than the companies or more so than the governments or these things. Like, how do the people benefit, is how I like to put it. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great, Alice. I cannot wait to hear your answer also. What do you think about the risks of the metaverse?
Um, well, I think that if we think back to the start of the internet, which, with avatars, I don't know how, what age people are. It's hard to think. But way back, for some of us who do remember where there was dial-up and only a few browsers available, there was so much excitement, and there was so much eagerness to figure out where the internet would go. And I think that has the same excitement now with the metaverse and with virtual spaces in general. And so if we try to draw from our experience of thinking about what the internet was like, how it started and how it's progressed and where it is now, I think we could draw parallels for which, there are a lot of dark things that happen on the internet. And because of what we potentially may have experienced or what others have experienced on the internet itself, whether it be via social media platforms or via other mediums, I think it's really important for us that as we explore virtual spaces, figure out how do we make sure it's a space that everyone can enjoy themselves. And of course, bad things will happen, and they always do. But what kind of measures do we have can we learn from the internet experience that we can bring here to virtual spaces and figure out how we can at least prevent some of the really bad things from happening and have consequences and punishments and things like that. So I think there are clear risks, but talking about and having these discussions now before it gets too prevalent. And I think with the internet, I think that was the problem. That is the problem. We are playing catch up. And it is so difficult to catch up with all the technology and figure out how to put in rules and regulations after the fact.
Amazing. So, but of course, not everything is bad in the metaverse. I think we have amazing things like education, which is actually my next question. I would like to ask you both, what do you think about the metaverse and education, since you both are into the educational system, you are at Stanford University. What do you think about the metaverse and education? Could be a real revolution, Emmanuel?
I certainly think education through VR is going to be a huge thing. The issue with that, I think, is that I don't know how many people have access to the technology, but those who do have access to the technology will have the potential to learn things through experience, which is much more conducive to understanding versus just knowing. I think there's a difference between knowing about something and understanding it. Let's say you're like supposed to be a mechanic, for example. You can have someone tell you all about how it works, kind of see them working on a car, but that's different from being in a actual position of working on a car. So let's say virtually with minimal risk, and you actually get to like build and like clean and whatever it is that you have to do. Those tasks have no risk. And as a result, you can do everything just virtually, recreate something, know exactly what goes wrong, what you can do right. There's just a lot more potential to learn through experience, because it's a virtual experience and because you're embodied and you can do every single individual thing yourself and you can be guided virtually and everything. And that means that so long as one person or one team creates a really good educational experience, that can be given to every single person that also has access to that technology at scale. And that's much more effective than just having someone personally teach you, speaking in scale at least. If that makes sense, I think it'll be a big thing.
Cannot agree more. Totally. What about you, Alice? What do you think about the education and the metaverse?
I completely agree. And there's so much potential. Actually, we just did a deliberative poll about education in California. And actually, one of the proposals was about eliminating schools, like physical schools in general, and having virtual schools for all people in all the students in California. And one of the things, we have to think about is if virtual classrooms are really a thing and we could achieve that through avatars and metaverse and all these different platforms, maybe it could be possible that physical schools at some point may not be as prevalent, may not be the standard or status quo. Because as he was saying, if we think about it, there's so much potential and we can get to so many more people and so much and allow them to experience things in so many different ways that maybe for some students could arguably be a better learning method. So I think it takes a lot of exploration, obviously. I don't think schools will disappear at any time soon. But I think the way that a lot of universities have started offering degrees that are purely online, that are classes that are purely online, I think that will probably start moving towards where you have schools that have purely virtual spaces where they earn their degrees in that way, and slowly it will migrate down to your K through 12 or primary and secondary education. I think is a real possibility.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. What a time to be alive. So my last question, I would like to ask just the last question, because I would like to give time for our audience also to ask some questions, but I would like to ask you both about how this technology might be used to create new opportunities in the social activism, and especially in political engagement. What do you think, Manuel?
Interesting. So I guess I think that one of the really empowering things about these virtual spaces for expressing yourself is that you're not forced to tell people who you are. You're not physically somewhere forced to be in your actual body to protest, to say something. You are in a virtual anonymous space potentially, unless the platform requires you to be completely honest about who you are. And you can just say what you think, what you truly believe. You can be truly honest without restrictions potentially. And surely there's a lot of debate in that space, but I think the fact that you can be more honest about yourself and that you can feel represented by certain groups of people that maybe aren't as well known in the common spaces of politics and general activism, that more people can be expressive, can have a word in these things. And I think that's really powerful potentially. And maybe one of the goals of the internet initially. But yeah,
Great.
I think.
What about you, Alice? What do you think about metaverse and social activism and political engagement? Would be.
Oh wow, it's there's so much happening in these Horizon and others in virtual spaces already. I mean, there are churches, there are so many groups that meet in these virtual spaces, so it's happening already. And I think the question really is, at what point is there a tipping point where so much of it will happen in these spaces? I think social media platforms, it took some campaigns and some prominent campaigns to start, with 2008 with Obama and using social media as arguably, that was when a lot of people talked about social media being one of the ways to garner support, etc. I think it's only a matter of time where whether it be policy issues or campaigns or any type of movement decides that the virtual space is one where they can start creating support, creating people behind and motivating and galvanizing people to take part. So it's waiting for that timing and opportunity to do so. And so so much of it is access, right? And I know, your lab and experimenting so much, and what we're trying to do here, hopefully being able to allow various types of people to come in and deliberate as we're testing out these features. And if more and more people get to try it out, then there may be more appetite to start creating movements in these spaces. So I think it's just waiting for its tipping point, just like social media was, and waiting for the right time and people or organizations to make that push.
Fantastic. I'm sure today was one of those tipping days.
I hope so.
All right, so guys, I would like to open the scenario now. Please, if any one of you has a question, raise your hand and go ahead. Although in Spanish or in English, we can translate it also. Anyone?
No. So probably here.
Anna, please.
Yes. Thank you, both of you, for your contributions. Really interesting. That is, I think, the big issue here. What we're trying to get into the schools, that parents mainly have this big, let's say, controversial issue of using these glasses or this metaverse, because as Pau said, like they're afraid, like his wife, of using these things for several reasons. Let's say because they don't want them to be in non-reality or non-real world, or because they're afraid of all these unsafety spaces which we could create. Is there any advance in the in your, let's say, departments where we could try to we could try to where we could okay, he's just
Are you okay? Señor,
we hope so.
¿Está usted bien? They're muted.
Señor, vuelva. Things like that can happen.
Yeah.
Metaverse artist.
Maybe he's not wearing glasses.
Thank you, Anna. It was a great question.
It is.
Thank you very much. I don't know if maybe Emmanuel or Alice like to give an answer.
Well, the
I'm happy.
question is mainly if there is anything you can
Sure.
give us advice for as newcomers getting through, because I want to test the glasses for pronunciation teaching in my pronunciation classes, but I'm afraid of those parents neglecting students to participate in any of these aspects, because I've heard already some controversies like saying, I don't want my students to participate in these things.
Oh my God.
Right.
Do you have any?
It's a very valid question. I mean, I have kids. Paul has kids. And my 7-year-old asks me to I want to try the classes on. Let me do it. My friends do it too. So I think the question, I think, is really one, it's being for parents to be familiar with the product. And it's the same thing with social media, right? And I use social media as an anchor just because we are now a little bit more familiar and perhaps comfortable with what is possible with social media. But I think it's exposure. And so I think with parents, and for your parents and your classes, there has to be sessions where they themselves are experiencing it and they see what's possible and what's not possible. Because if there indeed are parental controls that you set on, and if they experience it themselves and know that their kids won't be able to do this, but their kids can do this, and they'll be able to do these very cool things. And I think that is ultimately the way to convince people. I know, there are a lot of videos and, on YouTube of what people do. And it's hard for parents to, if they're just searching on YouTube to see what people do in virtual spaces, it's hard for them not to be worried or scared.
Yeah.
And I think,
Right.
yeah. Yeah. And I think for us who are trying to push this forward, it's really about giving people those opportunities to experience it themselves.
That's a great
And
idea.
unfortunately, it's so difficult because even with our work in deliberation, and we're just talking about bringing people together and talking, but we still get people critiquing and saying, well, can people really talk to each other if they're polarized or if they don't like each other? And even in our case, people have to see it happen in front of their face in order for them to believe that deliberation is possible. So I think with new technology, it's unfortunately with humans, it's really just we have to have them experience it themselves in order for them to be okay with it. And maybe you don't need every parent to do it, but at least a good amount of them to do it so that they can tell other parents.
Right.
And so you create a momentum in your class so that
That's a great
it's
idea.
acceptable to do that. And it would be so fascinating. In our area, there are a couple local schools that actually have virtual reality labs, and students can go in and wear the headsets and explore themselves. So I think that it's trending towards that path, but it will take a lot of effort on your part, unfortunately. Maybe Paul, to make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really
Emmanuel,
interesting.
what are your thoughts?
No, that was like really well put actually, because I think it's very easy to go down the fear mongering approach of, oh, your kids may not be in a very safe environment if they're using this technology. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and a lot of platforms that are really not meant for kids, and yet they're able to access them. There's a reason Oculus made it like a restriction that you have to be 13 or older to use the headset.
Perfect.
So I think it's fair to truly take the approach of, let me not have my kids interact with these systems that are ultimately algorithmically designed to invoke certain things or expose them to certain things, or have applications that exposes us to things that influence them in some negative way. But it is important to take the approach of take a step back, recognize that you may not know what you're going into, and informing yourself ultimately before making decisions that could expose them to things, if that makes sense. So I think Alice's approach, very important. First, inform yourself, experience these things for yourself, explore all the extremities that you possibly can to ensure that once your child goes in, you know what to watch out for, you know what to be careful about, and you know what to benefit from, what he could actually take away from it that could empower him to be, I don't know, learn better, interact with his friends in a very nice way when he's like, I don't know, at home alone or something, and he needs to interact with people. There's a lot of really useful things with this technology at the very end of the day, and I think it's important to emphasize that there's a lot to take away from it, while being conscious that things can go wrong. So it's a balancing game in my opinion. And right now we should definitely be as explorative as possible and as conscious as possible as we explore the technology. Would be my main takeaways.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Emmanuel. We're running out of time, but maybe we have one more question. One last question. Anybody wants to ask anything? Please.
Well, I mean, we are talking about theoretical questions, ethical questions, and I'm asking from the beginning because I don't have any experience and any idea about this environment. But can I share, for example, my screen with all these people, and can I ask them to interact with this screen? I mean, I'm thinking, of course, in my lessons, and this environment is able to provide me this real teaching experience. Because what I mean is, now that's wonderful, of course, but we are just listening and we are just talking. So can we interact? In fact,
So I can, if you guys allow me, I can share our
Yes, of
experience at UCAM. We are working with another metaverse called Spatial, because right now we are in Meta's metaverse called Horizon World, which is pretty amazing for some things like the avatars. The sound is unbelievable well, but it's not the only metaverse platform at all. Actually, at UCAM, we are using Spatial, which is way more open, and it allows you to share your screen, as you said, Professor Blas. You can share your screen. You can even upload PDFs, images, videos, and 3D objects, which could be even animated. All of this creates an amazing environment and platform to teach and to share your experiences. We already have over 300 hours of experience teaching in the metaverse of Spatial. Over 3,000 of our students already join it. And plus, you are more than invited to come to our lab and meet the team and create a new experience here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if you guys want to say something more.
Emmanuel, I'm sure you have.
Sure.
With
Yeah,
your,
so-
yeah.
Yeah, in this space specifically, Horizon Worlds, I think there's a lot less potential for all those things. I think it's meant to be more purely of a social environment where you like talk with people, interact with people, play games potentially, stuff like that. But it depends on the application, just like Paul said. So Spatial is a different application. It's a different like reality of the metaverse in which you can import entire like applications into that application and experience them. And there's a lot more flexibility as a result. But really, it's up to whatever application you're using. There you will experience the restrictions of whatever they believe people should be allowed to do. And that's where it's great to discuss, well, what are the limits? What's the moderation? What are people allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? All those discussions translate to each and every single app, and maybe to even like the hardware itself at scale over time. But yeah, good question.
Fantastic. All right, guys. So thanks a lot. We are running out of time. I don't want to take more time from Emmanuel and Alice because I know you guys are really busy. It was such an amazing experience to hear you, to see you, and to interact with you within the metaverse. Thanks a lot for that. Thanks to the whole audience, especially to my team, Alberto and Andres, who are around here and who help to manage and bring us all in here. And I don't want to go out from here without taking a selfie, a cool selfie, so you can stay here in the back. Come over here. Let's take a nice selfie.
Should we go with the audience down here?
Yeah, it's perfect.
All right.
Look at that.
Stand right here.
What an amazing photo. There we have.
Oh,
Okay.
que me he subido, espera.
Perfect. Say cheese. UCAM Stanford experience in the metaverse. Yoo-hoo. Bye. Ooh.
Bye.
That's so cute.
Perfect.
That's so cool.
Awesome.
Amazing, guys. Thanks a lot.
So cool. Thank you so much for coordinating.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for jumping on, like, despite all the technical things.
Oh,
Yeah.
there I am.
There you are.
There we go.
Cool, Emmanuel, I don't know if you want to try out something more. Perfecto. Gracias. Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to try out something more or we just.
I think that should be it. Yeah, those were the main two environments: the lobby and the auditorium.
I think it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
We hear everybody. Alberto, Andres, over here. What do you think, Andres? Alberto?
I gave you a 5-star rating.
Very good.
Yeah, really, really cool.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Loved it.
really.
Thanks a lot, Alice.
Fantastic.
So, everybody invited to the main lobby if you want to come back, and we can hang out over there, keep drinking.
Yeah.
And
Keep drinking.
Yes, of course, we have to have a beer.
Exactly.
from here we can go to the main lobby. Everybody here, so we have the food and the drinks and everything.
Very good. It's on behalf. It's on behalf of Stanford, right?
Yeah, for Stanford.
Okay.
there's these there's all sorts of interesting applications you'll see at like CES. It's a big convention where a bunch of these companies come together to show technology off. There's things for smell. There are things for taste.
Amazing.
Of course, sound, visuals. But when it comes to like
feel.
even feeling haptics, you'll have haptic suits, for example, haptic gloves,
Right.
where like you can feel the tension of pulling something. So
Yeah,
let's say
right.
you're trying to grab something in 3D space, it'll feel like you're actually grabbing something three-dimensional. Like, okay, you're grabbing an apple, you'll feel the resistance of grabbing an apple.
Amazing.
Just with a glove that helps you feel that tension. So there's pushes to try and do these things, which is really, it's all sorts of bizarre because it's like, oh, you're really replacing every single.
Yeah,
all the
right,
senses,
right.
Essentially, so there's it's interesting, but yeah, that is a thing.
And in our lab, you can try out a vest. We do have a vest.
Oh, really?
Which basically
Oh, there you
transforms
go.
the sound into physical experience in the body, and we are going to
No
use it. We are
way.
using
It's
it.
trippy.
We are
It's
using
trippy.
it already with the nursery school. So the goal is to bring our students to a war zone with so much sound. So we're going to do it with the military, Spanish military. Yeah,
Oh,
that's one of the
great.
goals.
To train them.
And yeah, when we have it in the lab, so you can try it out tomorrow if you want.
Oh, perfect.
That's fast.
Don't say that again. I'll be there tomorrow.
And there is another thing, another very important thing to make these experiences more realistic is, of course, the actual look and feel of the environment. Because this one looks
Right.
quite a cartoon, but in other spaces like spatial, it allows you to even upload photogrammetry of a real space. So it's basically a 3D
Exactly.
photo of the
Realism.
space. So the realism
Yeah.
is amazing.
Insane.
I need to. We need to talk, pal. Definitely.
In real person. Because Anna is like one of my best friends, but I've never met her
Oh,
in
great.
person.
That's right.
really?
So
That's
yeah, that's right. That's the first time I've really met him. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's metaverse,
Incredible.
right?
It's good to see
Last question, and then I'll leave you. Really, my question is, I want to try out a real experience with my students, like where they can see the mouth, where things are pronounced with tongue position, tongue height, with movements. Is that possible in any of because I've got ideas, but I don't have this background you have, obviously, as creators. Is there any possibility I could make them see how they pronounce?
I think that is absolutely possible. Let's say like the Quest Pro, for example, has the facial expressions. You can see them like kind
Right.
of move their mouth and things. There's also the Omniset, HP Omniset, which has like an extra sensor just to watch like your mouth specifically.
Yeah.
Puedes sacar la
I think
lengua,
it's
Pau.
absolutely possible. It's absolutely possible. And
Yeah.
someone could even make it to where visually there's like software that shows like the words popping up as you're saying them, or even shows a visual
Right.
representation of the mouth
Yeah.
movements, just in case the sensors aren't perfect and not representing your mouth correctly.
Yeah, right.
The potential
To make them see videos. Yeah.
It just makes the app for it technically. You just need to make the virtual experience application basically. And that it should absolutely be possible. The technology's out there.
Yeah.
It's just a bit
Right.
expensive.
And really, I thought that was my last question, but it isn't.
No, no worries.
Automatic speech recognition. Is that possible to be
Oh,
embedded
yes.
into?
Yes. So
This.
recently, I won a hackathon, second place for implementing ChatGPT inside of virtual reality.
Right.
Basically, I'm in a Unity
Right.
experience where you're speaking to a therapist. ChatGPT
Right.
is taking the persona of a therapist, and you speak to them, and they respond to you with that. Like you get the voice to text, you
Right.
get the text to speech as well, and all that whole process is very seamless, even through a Quest 2.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah, that's.
I'm doing my
absolutely
PhD
possible.
speech to text, right, to give them feedback. But I'm wondering if that could be possible to be embedded in this virtual reality, and where no teacher. I'm not saying that teachers are not needed. No, don't take me. Don't think I'm wrong,
Absolutely.
because I'm a
So
teacher, and
important.
that will be. But as Alice said, we're tending towards something more automatically getting easier access for
Assisting you,
people.
yeah.
Right, right. And that is something which I could imagine my students sitting at home doing homework just by getting automatic feedback where I'm not in.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. That should absolutely be possible. Yeah. Again, it's like someone needs to make this application. Someone needs to put the work in to implement these features of the voice recognition, of
Right.
representing like, oh, you said this incorrectly, detecting that, and
Yeah.
then responding, this is the right way to do it. It's just the software. We need more developers in these spaces being like, you know what, this is
Right.
an exciting application. We need to make this so that people can benefit from it and see that it's really valuable.
Oh my God. Okay, but we need developers for that, right?
Exactly,
my
and that's where
Yeah.
it's the transition. It's the transition from one platform to another, slowly but surely. That's
Yeah.
why we
Yeah.
need more exposure, because those things.
Of course, the technology has still limitations, but we
Yeah,
have
right.
this metaverse lab in our university, and UCAM. So we have Alberto, we have Andres. Some of the things that you are saying, we can do it. Some of them is still not, but now that we have Emmanuel also next to us, close to us, we will ask him also.
Perfect.
So step by step. I think the big
Thank
goal
you.
here is to make sense, to go to a metaverse and
Yeah.
do something which adds value, like what we did
Right.
tonight.
That's right. Thank you. That's really amazing.
Great questions, though. It's really interesting to think about actually how this impacts teachers and like the whole in detail the learning process. So that's cool. I'm glad you're
Right.
asking.
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you.
I don't know if somebody has more questions from here. En español, en inglés, como queráis.
Preguntas.
¿Qué tal la experiencia? ¿Qué os ha parecido?
Yo estoy. sí,
Muy
bueno,
bien,
Fantástico,
muy bien.
fantástico. No tienen que esconder ninguna.
Muy guay.
ningún
Hay
crítico.
que levantar la mano.
Interacción muy bien.
Lo pueden decir todo.
Sí, sí, sí.
Pau, esto es tremendo. Esto hay que hacerlo más a menudo.
Claro, claro. A ver, me gustaría
Oye,
escuchar
¿por
algunas
qué?
voces,
Hombre.
por ejemplo, que no he escuchado todavía, por ejemplo. Alberto, que quieres decir algo.
Sí. He te hablado.
Por ejemplo, ¿quieres decir algo? No,
A mí me ha
estás-
encantado. Aquí
¿Ah?
está por aquí. A mí me ha encantado mucho la experiencia, la verdad. Eso es súper chula, súper chula.
Muy
Es
bien.
que la cuestión es que podemos interaccionar realmente, aunque seamos estos personajillos graciosos que hemos puesto todos,
Sí, sí.
pero que realmente podemos interaccionar. Es que
Sí.
estás dentro de la conversación al fin y al cabo, ¿eh?
Sí, y en este metaverso
Sí.
no podemos todavía meter objetos ni PowerPoints, pero en Spatial
Claro,
sí se
claro.
puede y eso añade
En
un
Spatial
valor
sí, sí.
increíble. Sí. Muy bien, el próximo lo haremos en Spatial. Lo hemos hecho en Meta, bueno, no lo hemos dicho, quizá tenemos que haberlo dicho, pero lo estamos haciendo en Meta porque el proyecto con el que estamos colaborando con Stanford es precisamente también financiado por Meta, que quiere averiguar a dónde va a ir todo esto del metaverso, de su metaverso, qué conflictos se van a llevar a cabo aquí dentro, etcétera. Entonces, yo se lo he dicho a Emmanuel, para la UCAM, para nosotros es una oportunidad increíble, ¿no? Poder trabajar de esto con los que lo están creando, porque Meta está
Claro.
en Silicon Valley y Stanford está allí. O sea, esta gente es la que... De hecho, Emmanuel literalmente ha diseñado este environment y bueno, para nosotros es un auténtico honor poder disfrutar de todo esto y creo que vivir algo histórico como lo que estamos viviendo. Y además para mí es especialmente muy especial porque tengo aquí a algunos de mis profesores, Emmanuel, que me han dado clase a mí y que me han hecho despertar el amor por la comunicación y creo que esto es el nuevo campo de la comunicación. Entonces, pues tener
Sí.
aquí a Blas, tener aquí a Juan Fran, pues es un lujazo también, ¿no? No sé si está todavía por ahí. No sé. Y
De
bueno,
esta
hay
derecha,
gente
Juan
como-
Fran.
y gente también como Joaquín, que lo tenemos aquí al lado con nosotros hoy. Joaquín forma parte del mundo business, ¿no? Del mundo empresarial, que también está empezando a ver el potencial de estas herramientas. Joaquín tiene además es una de las mentes más brillantes del mundo empresarial y él ya está cerca de ese mundo.
quiere
Y-
mucho,
y-
me quiere
porque
mucho.
hemos hablado mucho de la parte educativa, pero también el mundo empresarial, el mundo del business,
Claro.
¿no? Está despertando a esta nueva realidad. Y bueno, me alegra muchísimo tenerle hoy aquí. Bueno, él está convencido de esto, pero al vivir esto, más fácilmente podrá compartirlo con otras empresas y decirle que esto del metaverso no está ni muerto ni mucho menos, que está empezando a nacer.
Pau, tú sabes que nosotros con la spin-off que estamos montando, como lleva productos relacionados con el mundo 3D, fue fundamental montar un metaverso para a posibles inversores presentarles el producto sin que pudieran tenerlo físicamente delante.
Qué
Lo
bueno.
cual fue, bueno, pues algo muy relevante.
Muy bien.
Y bueno, y de hecho, pues creo que es una oportunidad que no se tiene que perder.
Es que
Fantástico.
las posibilidades son infinitas. ¿eh?
Sí,
Es
con el
increíble.
equipo Rafa, con nosotros, Emmanuel, hay un proyecto muy interesante que hablaremos más de él, pero queremos con Rafa. Rafael es el decano de la Facultad de Ingeniería de Ciencias de Telecomunicaciones aquí en la UCAM. Y estamos probando ya el sistema Starlink de Elon Musk, que conoces perfectamente. The goal here, el objetivo aquí es muy ambicioso porque queremos crear un paquete de tecnología con 10 gafas MetaQuest y el Starlink y llevarlo a Uganda para llevar a cabo una formación en el metaverso en África. Ese es el objetivo, ¿vale? Y ojalá podamos también colaborar con vosotros en este ambicioso objetivo.
Eso suena increíble en realidad, porque es una región donde no hay internet por métodos estándares, tienes que usar satélite, porque pues por allá arriba. Ok, suena interesante eso en realidad. Qué bueno que
Sí.
lo mencionas.
Sí, poder formar realmente a la gente en África allí, para que se formen con calidad, como si estuvieran aquí, pero estando allí de forma que puedan retener el talento, que es uno de las necesidades que tiene África, y que, bueno, con esto creo que podemos llegar a lograrlo. O sea, que es un ambicioso proyecto que, bueno, ya contamos contigo, contamos con Stanford.
Por eso, me encantará hablar más sobre eso. Absolutamente.
Fantástico.
Suena interesante.
Muy bien, chicos. Pues,
Espectacular.
¿alguna pregunta más tenéis por aquí?
Yo,
10:30,
a mí me
podemos
gustaría,
ya la cerveza.
a mí me gustaría
¿Se puede ir
preguntarle a
la gente
Emmanuel,
también? Ah.
porque ha dicho Pau que has podido crear todo este espacio, ¿no? Dentro de este metaverso.
Sí.
Mi pregunta es, ¿cuánto tiempo tarda una persona en crear este tipo de espacios? ¿Qué tipo de formación necesita una persona para crear este tipo de espacios? Porque yo miro al techo y si no soy arquitecto no se me ocurre la forma de las columnas, ¿no? Del techo o de la estrella ahí en medio. Entonces, no sé si es que hay algún tipo de diseño, prediseño, donde tú vas componiendo los elementos o esto parte de cero.
Entonces termina siendo una mezcla en realidad. Entonces esta aplicación te deja crear formas por ti mismo, conectarlas, atarlas de maneras muy específicas, pero primariamente te provee un montón de assets ya, de objetos que puedes usar y poner en lugares, y es más como que tú tienes la libertad de crear más cosas si quieres, pero puedes construir con todo lo que ya existe, y hay muchas cosas que puedes escoger de. Entonces unas cosas, por ejemplo, no las creé yo. Esta carpeta no la creé yo. Esto era un asset que vi y lo puse en el suelo. Y era más fácil crear porque unas cosas ya eran creadas. Otros sí metí yo mismo y creé en diseño, y eso dura más tiempo, pero lo poderoso sobre estas aplicaciones es que puedes crear mundos sin tener que poner demasiado esfuerzo. Es diferente a usar una engine como Unity, donde tienes que meter cosas de afuera o tienes que crearlos tú mismo, meter todas las interacciones, programar todo. Hay otras maneras de programar las interacciones aquí, pero son más limitadas también porque de eso. Entonces, esta aplicación no será donde crearás las interacciones más complejas o interesantes, pero sí es muy seguro para la gente que no tiene experiencia, si quiere crear en este espacio.
¿Cualquier persona puede crear?
Sí, en realidad, sí. Puedes meterte, nada más sacar tu buzón de opciones, buscar algo y te puede aparecer. Va a haber una limitación en que tantas cosas hay, al fin, que puedes escoger de, pero si tienes una visión, es muy probable que lo puedas crear.
Pero
Un
cualquier
mundo perfecto.
usuario, no sé, cualquiera de nuestros alumnos puede llegar a hacerse una cuenta, meterse en metaverso y utilizar un espacio vacío. Estoy pensando en
Exactamente.
Minecraft, ¿no? Por ejemplo, un espacio
Claro,
vacío
claro.
donde tú tienes un terreno y tú puedes crear cualquier cosa y luego invitar a esas personas a ese. Estamos hablando de los Sims,
Sí.
porque
Sí,
estos
sí,
son
sí.
los Sims. Vamos, básicamente.
Pero viviendo en directo.
Total.
Sí.
Exactamente, ¿no? Perdonad
sí.
porque yo soy el friki de los videojuegos seguramente de esta sala, ¿no? Y estoy continuamente asociándolo a los videojuegos, ¿no? Y claro, se me ocurren
Perfecto, sí.
tantas posibilidades a nivel de investigación, por supuesto, ¿no? Que al final
Sí.
es en mi campo.
No, sí, puedes tener a niños metiéndose aquí, no, óptimamente un poco más grande que 13 o para arriba, y se pueden meter y puedes decirles que hagan el tutorial de cómo se crea en este espacio. Y con eso básicamente ya tienes una idea de cómo crear, y pues la calidad va a depender en qué tanta experiencia meten, pero no tienes la restricción de que tienes que programar cosas, porque hay unas cosas que puedes coger de la buzón de opciones, que ya tienen algo programado dentro de ello y meterlo en el mundo, por ejemplo. Entonces, pero si quieres programar cosas también, hay un lenguaje de programación aquí que es muy simple, es como Scratch, no sé si
Sí.
sabes qué es eso.
Sí.
Pero es nada más conectas básicamente bloques de lógica y para hacer cosas.
Sí.
Entonces es muy
Como el Mario
seguro
Maker
para
y todo esto,
meterte.
sí.
Hay que montar un curso,
No
Pau.
tienes que...
Sí.
No requieres curso de ciencia de computadora para crear las
Sí.
cosas aquí, exactamente. Es flexible, sí, lo recomendaría.
Hay algo parecido como Unreal Engine, donde tú tienes una aplicación donde coges algo, bueno, un árbol, ¿no? Una planta, una casa del
Unreal
mundo
Engine,
real,
sí.
lo escaneas
Sí.
y lo puedes traer aquí.
Eso es lo que no puedes hacer aquí. Entonces
Vale.
no puedes sacar cosas de afuera y meterlos. Lo tienes que crear dentro de aquí, y eso es más duro.
Vale.
Sí. De momento es así, aunque es verdad, Juan, que teóricamente la plataforma sigue evolucionando y quieren dejar meter también objetos de fuera. En Horizon, en Spatial, sí puedes
Ya
hacer
puedes.
lo que tú has dicho de escanear un mundo y luego meterlo dentro. Eso sí se puede hacer en Spatial. Y está empezando ahora a ver, hay un plugin de Unity que puedes crear mundos en
es
Unity con
importante.
interacciones y meterlo dentro de Spatial. Y ahí puedes hacer gamificación, quest, bueno, la verdad es que es muy, muy interesante.
Spatial es la plataforma donde está lo de la universidad, pero es algo que se ha creado en exclusiva para la universidad, o es algo donde
No, no,
cualquier
no.
persona puede
No.
crear dentro.
Eso, exacto, es cualquier persona. Es otra,
Vale,
otra
vale.
plataforma de metaverso, como
Vale.
Horizon, como otras más. No la ha hecho la Universidad de Cero, ni mucho menos. Nosotros lo hemos aprovechado de esa plataforma para crear nuevos mundos
Vale.
orientados al mundo educativo, donde hay, como sabes, varios mundos de la propia UCAM, que estadio de fútbol, incluso una clase donde le preguntamos a los profesores cómo les gustaría que fuera esa aula ideal, y así lo diseñamos. Y tenemos que hacer el plato de televisión, por ejemplo, con luces
supuesto.
dinámicas, con sonido, bueno, en fin.
Sí,
Mucho
bueno,
más.
tú mismo sabes que decía también Rafa, ¿no? Un poco a nivel de educación, que es un poco de lo que iba la temática de la charla, pero tú mismo sabes que hay exámenes de cámara, por ejemplo, ¿no? Que los alumnos se
Correcto.
ponen muy nerviosos con los exámenes de cámara, entonces
ejemplo.
me imagino a un alumno practicando antes
sí.
del examen de
Sí, sí.
cámara o en la realización o en plató.
Exacto.
Engage.
Sí, sí.
Es la que usamos nosotros.
Arri.
Ujú, ujú.
Tenían cámaras Arri, las habían reproducido. Es otro metaverso distinto a Spatial o a Horizon. Es otro distinto y también muy potente, donde específicamente ya han creado lo que tú comentas, Juanfran. De hecho, queríamos quedar con ellos. Estábamos esperando que volvieras de la paternidad para poder quedar con ellos y que lo conozcas de primera mano.
Bueno,
Sí, tenemos un laboratorio que colabora directamente con Engage, el Virtual Human Interaction, trabajo con ellos directamente. Y sí, usamos eso para nuestras investigaciones.
Qué bueno.
Sí, es similar a Spatial, diría.
Sí, qué fantástico. Muy bien. Pues nada, chicos.
Pues muchísimas gracias por todo.
10:30 de la noche. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Lo hemos
Gracias
grabado
a ti.
todo y lo difundiremos también. Y nada, ojalá hagamos más experiencias como estas. Y quiero ir
Sí,
por aquí
por
chocando a mano a todo el mundo.
Tope.
Muchas gracias. A tope,
Un placer,
gracias.
chicos.
Planear esto.
Gracias.
Wow.
Manuel, un placer. Hablamos.
Está.
Adiós, buenas noches.
Gracias por venir.
Gracias a todos.
Gracias a vosotros.
Gracias.
Marco,
Muchas
gracias.
Andresito, adiós.
Hasta luego.
Bye, bye.
Muchas gracias, Pau.
Gracias.
Gracias, Pau.
Adiós.
A ver si sabemos
Bye,
salir de
crack.
aquí.
Gracias,
Super
Super
Pau.
Muchísimas gracias.
Albert.
Ha sido una pasada, tío.
Ana,
Enhorabuena.
Adiós.
a ver si nos vemos pronto.
Eso es. No,
Aquí.
voy a verte.
Gracias. Chao, chao.
Adiós, gracias a ti, adiós.
El último que cierre las luces.
A Bulgaria. A Bulgaria.